It's time now for the all-new Animal Health Forum, brought to you by Paws Dog Training and Canine Behavior Center and Lake Chatoog Animal Hospital. And now your hosts, Ed Abel and Dr. Hilty Burr.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show. We're so excited this morning. We got myself and Dr. Burr. And Dr. Burr, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm here in Florida via remote. I'm in right near Panama City, and my wife's on the beach getting some sun, and me and my dog are sitting here talking to y'all.
Great, great. Well, we hope you have a great time while you're down there. Hey, we want to get the show started off today by mentioning some of our sponsors. Of course, Paws Dog Training and Canine Behavior Center. We're always looking forward to helping people with their dogs. And Chatoog Animal Hospital. Why don't you give us a little more information on Chatoog since you're somewhat familiar with them?
Well, what about the Working Dog Support Network? That's why you and I have teamed up together. Why don't you mention that first?
Okay. Of course, Paws Working Dog Support Network is our nonprofit. We're a 501c3, and our job at Paws is to work with law enforcement and first responders with canines and search and rescue dogs, as well as training service dogs for people with disabilities so that we can afford them an opportunity to live a more independent life. And then we run courses and seminars for trainers. So that's what we do over at Paws Working Dog Support Network, which is part of Paws Dog Training and Canine Behavior Center here in Blairsville, Georgia.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to be on the board of your nonprofit, Ed. I love what you're doing with the first responders and the local sheriff's departments and the medical service dogs. That kind of falls into my ballywag, so to speak, with my interest in the human-pet bond, and that kind of is what brought us together. Lake Chatoog Animal Hospital is the animal hospital that I used to own, and then I started the Tri-County Animal Clinic, too, which is now Mountain Animal Clinic. But I retired. I'm still active. I'm involved in two nonprofits, and I get people calling me all the time. I still live in the area, live in Hiawassee, and I get a lot of questions about animals and pets. So although I'm not working for a living anymore, I am working for fun, so to speak.
Well, we certainly appreciate all your hard work and effort that you put into Paws Working Dog Support Network. We couldn't do this without you.
Well, to me, it's not work. It's a lot of fun, and I really love, to watch the folks as they bond with their pets. And they really are their pets still, but they serve a specific medical purpose, as you know. And we've had some great guests already, and I know you've got some other guests. But I remember the autistic mother, child who has autism. That was right, was it not? No, that was the diabetic.
Right, we have a dog that we're training right now for diabetes. We had Rayma Cook on our show a few weeks ago, and we're working with a dog for her daughter, Hannah. Dex, he's diabetes.
That's the childhood diabetes or juvenile diabetes.
Right,
child.
She's got type 1 diabetes. We are seeing more and more cases of autism, and we're now working dogs for that purpose. We have several dogs going through training. We're getting ready to expand a little bit. We're going to start bringing in a few more service dogs. Our last meeting, as a matter of fact, it was our last meeting that we had over the pet celebration that we did a couple of weeks ago. We got some really positive feedback from some of the different animal rescue organizations.
Oh, the meet and greet. Yeah. The pet celebration is not until September. You mean the meet and greet, right?
Right. No, the meeting that we had is where I was able to talk with some of the representatives from the different rescues, and we were able to link up with a couple of them, and we're actually going to be looking at taking one of the dogs this Saturday for testing. So we're really excited about that because, that's creating a win-win-win situation. We take a dog out of a shelter, needs to be rehomed, we put it through the training, and then it ends up going and helping somebody to live a more independent life. So that we really love that when that works out.
Well, we need to talk about that. I wasn't aware of that because like you said, that really is shows the rescues are so busy just taking care of these homeless pets, but we need to remind them of why it's important that we collaborate, because that's a perfect example of how we do have a great success by just getting together from time to time.
Absolutely.
Now there's one more sponsor we should mention, and that's the Blairsville General Supply. That's that great, I think it's a little boutique store, but also pet store, pet food. You've actually been there. I need to go there, but if you'll tell everybody about.
Yeah, it's a really great little shop. It's off the Gainesville Highway, just outside of Blairsville. It's a father and son ran business, and they're just great folks over there. As a matter of fact, I was by there this morning picking up some more dog food, and they have everything from garden supplies to their small boutique shop, all the way up to dog food, cat food, pet supplies. But we encourage people to go by, and when you do, would you please let them know that you heard about them from our show, or you heard our show and that you stopped by to visit them. We love that.
Right, and you mentioned Lake Chatuque, and I interact with Cheyenne, the hospital manager, and I always try to ask her what's on their mind these days as far as pet care. And she mentioned again that heartworms is still a big issue, and that they're working real hard to educate folks about getting their pets back on heartworm preventive if they took them off in the winter. And then she also mentioned that snakes are starting to move, and so be sure to consider the rattlesnake copperhead vaccine that I really used a lot when I was in practice, and saw a lot of pets protected by that. If they're vaccinated and they do get bit, they have minimal symptoms typically when they're vaccinated. And then, of course, fleas and ticks are starting to show up more than they do in the winter, and so got to keep your flea and tick control. And allergies are kicking in. Pets get a lot of skin allergies, dogs and cats do. And she wanted me to mention that there's a new product. Well, it's not that new, but a lot of people are traveling, and they take their pets with them. One of the most common problems is motion sickness or car sickness, and there's a medicine called Serenia that you can give your pet that will basically prevent them from having car sickness. So that's a wonderful product called Serenia.
Boy, that's a lot of good information, because you're right. We have a lot of people who travel back and forth from Florida to Georgia, and we deal with that a lot in our our dog training center. People telling us their dogs get motion sickness. So those are some really good tips, and I want to caution people as well. You know, when we're seeing a lot of mosquitoes now because we've had so much rain. So heartworm preventative is absolutely necessary up in this area, as well as treating the grounds for external parasites, hookworm, roundworm. When the dogs defecate in a backyard, you've got to clean that soil as well. And
you got to pick up the feces. So that's a good point. Yeah, you can't. It will. The infectious stages persist in the environment almost forever if you leave the feces there. So if you're out in public, that's really important. I guess what you do in your own yard is your own concern, but if you're out in public, it's a good idea to not expose other pets to possible parasites. So that's a good point. You want to talk about the upcoming event we've got coming with the 212 Entertainment?
Yeah, that's really exciting. You know, as a lot of people know, we've been trying to get a concert over the last year to do a fundraiser for Paws Working Dog Support Network. Well, guess what? We're going to be able to do it this time. It's going to be July 23rd. So everybody mark July 23rd on your calendar. And why don't Dr. Burr, you're very familiar with the gentleman who's going to be doing the entertainment. So would you give us a little bit about him?
Yep, I'll do that. And then I'd like to make sure we tell folks how they can contact us to let us know they're interested in a ticket. But it's the entertainment is a multi-instrumentalist. Oh, I hope Packy's listening to this because he's a musician himself. He's a multi-instrumentalist, composer, producer, and a music historian, all in one. His name is Bobby Horton. He's a singer and storyteller, and he's really most famous for doing the award-winning music for Ken Burns' PBS documentaries. Most people are familiar with Ken Burns, I hope. He does all those historic documentaries on PBS, the Civil War one, a baseball one. There's one on country music. I think Bobby told me he's up to 30 documentaries that he's worked with Ken Burns on. And
wow.
And he told me when I was fortunate enough to get him to commit to come up here, he's working on 3 projects at this time for Ken Burns. He's also had 2 films on the A&E, 2 performances. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He did the music for 2 performances on the A&E network, and he does all the films for the National Park Service. But saying all that, the thing about him is that he's just a tremendous guy. He's a great entertainer. He does authentic early American period music, especially around the Civil War period. And he's just a ton of fun. He's a musician's musician. He can play anything with strings. He can play anything you can blow on. He can play anything. He's just one of these people that's just extremely gifted. When I called him, this is a funny story. When I called him to ask him about this, because he knows my dad. I knew him through a story I'll tell another time. But when I asked him, and it was on my birthday, he said, "Whoa, wait a minute!" And he jumped up and he grabbed his 1717, that's the year, fiddle, and played "Happy Birthday" to me. So that was a really very fun thing.
Wow,
and,
sounds like a very talented guy.
And so, for folks who aren't familiar with to give you an idea, if you're familiar with John Hartford, he's a Nashville legend who appeared on the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour series. He's kind of like John Hartford and the comedian Steve Martin. It's kind of picture those two together. So if you really want to come out and help us, help support the Working Dog Support Network, because we're gonna do this as a benefit, but you're gonna have some great entertainment. It's a gourmet meal. Wine and music all wrapped up into one. We're still working on the location. We have one that we'd be able to choose, but we want to make sure we have the best location for this. And like Ed said, it's July 23rd. And so, Ed, maybe it's a good time to tell folks how to contact us, even if they want to just ask a question, but also to contact us about this concert.
Sure. One of the ways you can do it is just by calling us at 706-716-9990. That's our number at Paws. Or you can call toll-free 888-840-3647, DOGS. And what we are also on our website at www.pawsworkingdogs.org. And we'll have the information, or 212 Entertainment. If you go on 212 Entertainment, Michael Borkman, and he also has tickets available through that.
Yeah, that's good. And and don't forget the Animal Health Forum at gmail.com. If you listen to the show a lot, that's easy for you to remember. We'll be monitoring that as well.
Yes, sir. And I think we're about ready to take a break here. And
okay.
We'll hope you come back and join us. We're going to have some good questions after this break. We're also going to talk a little bit about the reason for dog training.
Right.
Welcome back to the Animal Health Forum. Once again, your hosts, Ed Abel and Dr. Hilty Burr.
Welcome back, everybody, for the second half of our show. I'm Ed Abel with Dr. Hilty Burr, who is with us remotely today from Florida. He's soaking up the rays down there. We wanted to go over a couple of questions that we have. Doc, did you have did you receive a question this week on the medical side of the house?
I did, and I know you got one too. This is going to be interesting because it's about a horse. Horse can be a companion animal too. In fact, they are considered companion animals. Back in the day, they were considered working animals. But I guess since the Second World War, they became less and less used for work and more for companionship. Of course, they have races and shows, but they're companions as well. And I did get a question from Lucy from Cleveland, Tennessee, which is kind of an interesting place. Where I did used to live there, so that's kind of interesting. And she has a 12-year-old rose gray Irish sport horse, which I had never heard of an Irish sport horse before. But it's basically a warm blood, and warm bloods are the big, tall European horses that are used for jumping and dressage. And it's a gelding named Finn, and he was actually, she explained to me that he was born a bay. But bay is a brown horse with black stockings, but grays out with brown flecks as they get older instead of black flecks. And she actually sent me a picture, a really pretty horse. He's 16.3 hands tall. That's tall. That's like you, Ed, really tall. And Finn he was diagnosed with a subdermal melanoma. And you first people who I know who are listening to the show would say, melanoma, oh my goodness, that sounds horrible. And it is horrible for people and dogs, for example. If you get a melanoma, it's serious, and there's a lot you have to get done beyond surgery. Really, in fact, my mother had melanoma, and she had to have really very drastic surgery. And so, in dogs, if they get it, it's not good. But actually, in horses, it's a little different. It's actually considered more of a benign tumor. But as with most things, there are some exceptions. And one of the first things I asked her is if there was a biopsy done, and I found out when I engaged with her more that it had not been done. So it's presumptive diagnosis. They should do at least a fine needle aspirate or a biopsy to confirm that, because lots of masses can occur on any animal or any person really, but without a biopsy or at least cytology, you're just really guessing. But they think it's benign, and he does. This particular veterinarian in Cleveland does not want to remove it due to its location. And she explains she wrote me a nice long synopsis. It's near large vessels in the neck where the jugular vessel is, so it's in a kind of tricky place. So, not to take up too much time, what I advised her is to get a fine needle aspirate biopsy, because it would be easy to diagnose with that. So that's a very very minimally invasive procedure. And then I did suggest that she go to a boarded equine surgeon and oncologist at UT because of the location, or University of Tennessee, since she lives in Cleveland, because to consider surgery. And there are some chemo options even, because I just worry about it growing more and invading those major vessels. So that's what you worry about with melanomas in horses, is that they typically don't cause much problem unless they're in a bad place. If it's not too deep, surgery is a good option, and then they can laser or cryotherapy, which is freeze it off. And there is some chemo options you can inject into the tumor. There's even a immune system option that's used for dogs with melanoma that's used off-label in horses that has some efficacy. So there's certainly lots that can be done about that. So that's a question I thought was interesting about a big companion animal, a horse. So, Ed, did you get any good questions?
I did. I've got one from Mary from Hiawassee, and this is one that we hear a lot of. Mary has a Great Pyrenees mix. It's just a big dog. She said, sweet dog, great personality, loves everybody, but I cannot walk him on a leash because he's always pulling me. And one of the things that we tell all of our students when we start, our training is a little bit different. I'm going to kind of backtrack here for a second. First thing that we do when you come in is we do an evaluation, because we want to find out what your goals and objectives are with your dog. The second thing, we want to find out what problems you're having. So Mary would, of course, tell us, my dog just pulls. I can't walk him on a leash. Therefore, I'm not giving him the exercise that I think that he needs. So what we tell people is that walking your dog and utilizing a leash, one, is very unnatural. It's unnatural for the dog. It's unnatural for a person to have four legs walking by their side. And it's about balance. And it's about balance in the way that we control ourselves. I use the analogy quite often of martial arts. The reason someone who's 5'2" and weighs 110 pounds can throw somebody my size who's 6'4", 250 pounds, is because they are maintaining their balance and using the momentum of the person against them. So we have to learn that the animals live in this world of balance. If you ever watch shows like Nat Geo where a wolf is being taken down, you'll notice the first thing they do is go for the hind quarter of the legs while it's in gait, so that it can be knocked over very easily. If you're in the middle of a stride, you don't have good balance. Well, the same thing happens with us. When we get our arms extended from our bodies, we tend to bend forward. This puts us off balance. Now, our dogs don't sit there and go, if I can get mom or dad's arms extended from their body, they'll be off balance and I can pull them. It doesn't work that way. It's a very natural cause and effect, if you will. So what we teach our people is to keep your hands in the leash in a loose position at the center of the body, because that's your core of balance. Bend slightly at the knees instead of bending at the waist, and then allowing the dog to actually realize I've got 5 or 6 feet of the leash. So the dog pulls out at the end of that, corrects it himself. We're going to be actually doing a podcast or a training video on this because it comes up so often. Trying to use physical force on a dog, especially if you're 120 pounds and you've got a dog that weighs 150, that's just not going to work. You're not going to muscle and use strength to control the dog. So we want to teach people how to use balance and momentum to actually control their dog on a leash. We also adhere to the practice that you need to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. A lot of times people will come in right away, they want to go into a heel position. Well, if I'm popping you and making you heel, the first thing you're going to do when I cut you loose is pull away. You don't want to be with me. So we want to create an environment that's conducive for training, that the dog has fun, and it wants to work with you. That's what we do and how we get to it. Before we answer any other questions or go any further, I do want to remind everybody of the events we have coming up. July 23rd, we have the concert and fundraiser for Paws Working Dog Support Network. We have the pet celebration coming up in September. We have a concert the night before. And Doc, we're getting down to the last couple of minutes of the show. So can you give a brief description of the concert and the activities for the pet celebration?
Yeah, well, the pet celebration is September 18th, and the concert is August 23rd. 27th. So it's they're split apart. And the August 27th is Gnarly Fingers is going to perform, and it's a fundraiser. I'm sure most everybody in the area is familiar with them, probably the most popular local band in the area. And that's for benefit for the Celebration of Pets Foundation. And so we have a lot of fun things going on. We have a spot-on contest where there will be a Dalmatian there where people can buy tickets to guess their spots and win an award, which will help us raise funds. And also, Matt Gomez is going to have Pump Your Chunks. He makes these shoes, which are basically Converse, and they're customized to individuals. And he's done it for a lot of famous people like Will Smith, and who's that basketball player that's so famous? I can't think of him. Plays for L.A. Can't think of him. King George, whatever his name is. Anyway, an NBA guy. So a lot of famous people contract out with Matt for these shoes. So he's going to give away 2 pairs, and one we're going to have raffles for that. And, of course, the great music that evening. That's all we have for the time for the show today. So come tune in next time for Animal Health Forum with me and Ed.
We'll see you next week, folks. Thank you so much.